Hello, my friends. Welcome to week number 6 of the 100K challenge, the road to $1 million of personal income. I built these videos after reaching this milestone myself, and the goal of each one of these videos is to give you actionable steps you can take every single week to increase your income by $100,000, ideally this year, on your own personal journey to $1 million. And while these steps will always be simple, they're not necessarily easy, which is why so few advisors ever reach this number. In fact, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only half of the advisors in the entire country ever break 6 figures of personal income. The top 10% make it to 200,000. We can only extrapolate that maybe 1% make it to $1 million. So this is not an easy path, but it is simple. And so this week, week 6, we will have the action items for you to take care of this week. This information does work in addition to building my own practice to $1 million personal income. This strategies work for hundreds, now thousands of other advisors, including my buddy James Duffy. As mentioned, I built a 7-figure practice with an 8-figure exit. I host the Perfect RA podcast, and I make videos like this to teach other advisors how to do what it is that I've done. Reminder from last week, from week 5, you can find that video in the show notes below. You wanted to practice your Roth conversion script. Not that Roth conversions in themselves are magical, but your ability to communicate complex topics in a simple fashion, which we're going to build on this week, will be critical. You need to write and practice your fee script until it becomes as comfortable as your name and your home address. You want to prove your integrity to your team by always being 5 minutes early and doing everything that you said you would do. And of course, we've got to get 10 reps in, ideally a day, 10 reps a week at the minimum. So we're going to build on this week. And so let's keep going. This week, we're going to focus on more reps equals more money. If you want your practice to grow, if you want your personal income to grow, you have to do more repetitions. Like that's the only path. We can spend a lot of time trying to find a shortcut. Unfortunately, all time spent finding a shortcut is time that you could have just done reps. And I know the reps aren't fun. It's just the only way to get there. So we're going to talk this week. Make sure that we're contacting our prospects every 90 days for at least 3 years, which is a big ask, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on being prepared, and that how being prepared is almost like cheating, especially when you're earlier in your career and you don't necessarily have the confidence either in your own mind or in the prospect's mind, the credibility that you need. Being prepared is like cheating. We're going to talk about the difference of doing things in Crayon versus in Marshmallow. This will make sense in just a minute. We're going to talk about breaking the funk. This is difficult work. We're only on week 6 here. Odds are you've been in your career much longer than 6 weeks. And there are hours or days or weeks or sometimes even months where this job sucks. And if you feel like quitting and you stop getting work done, you find yourself playing office. And of course, we'll have a bonus as we do every week, which is the book that I've read more times than any other book in my collection. Let's understand the prospect buying cycle. Now, this ad to the right is an old McDonald's ad. I'm not even sure how old it is. Maybe someone can look in the footnote and find out. McDonald's runs ads constantly. Why? Well, one, they're a large corporation and they have to. Maybe 2, they need to compensate for low quality food. It's not really the point. They run ads constantly because at least 3 times a day, McDonald's is an option for you. You might consider them for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for a snack in between. So the buying cycle for McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant is like 4 hours? Probably less than that. It's probably a 15-minute impulse decision. So they need to run these ads constantly so that when you're making that decision, McDonald's is top of mind for you. Again, you can substitute McDonald's with whatever fast food you enjoy or don't enjoy. Let's contrast this with a financial advisor buying cycle. And we even tell our prospects, hey, most of our clients will stay with us their entire lives. In other words, in contrast to McDonald's, which is 3 times a day, maybe 4 times a day, choosing a financial advisor is likely a once or twice in a lifetime decision. And so it's not at all unusual that a prospect will need time to make this decision more than the time they need to make a McDonald's decision. And so with that, in most advisor offices, when we track the details, it typically takes 18 months to 36 months between when a prospect first learns about an advisor, enters his or her ecosystem, to when they make the decision to become a client. Now, sometimes we can shorten that, sometimes it's longer, but we need to just go in with the assumption that it will take as long as 36 months for them to make a decision. Now, 36 months is a long time, but great news, 36 months is going to go by either way. So we might as well have the 36 months go by in our favor. Now, in another video, we'll talk about what to do with prospects once you've been dripping on them for three years. But for now, we're going to assume that you haven't been. And so we want to reach out to prospects. I do the same for center of influence. every 90 days. Now, if I'm just reaching out with them every 90 days saying, hey, are you ready to buy now? That's not going to be an effective strategy. If instead every 90 days I'm reaching out with something of value, right, a reason to be contacting them, I'm going to accelerate that process. And when they are ready to make a decision, I will be top on their mind. So what are reasons we could reach out to prospects? We could reach out to them and say, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, as I'm sure you've heard, interest rates have been changing quite a bit recently. Something we're doing for all our clients is to make sure that they're getting the maximum interest rate on all of their savings account and the minimum interest rate on all of their debt. If this is something you'd like us to look at for you, just give me a call and we can make that happen. So notice that script can be used for anything. Tax law changes. You can do it with your quarterly value adds. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, every quarter we go deep on some area of our client's financial life. So this quarter it was beneficiaries included as a sample of that report. If you'd ever like us to review your beneficiaries to make sure that your money always goes to the person you intend, let us know. We can schedule an appointment. We can do that with the quarterly newsletter. I like to put a handwritten note on top of those, the value adds. You can, on a selective basis, you have to be a little more careful about this one because the cost adds up. You can send out your favorite books. This I might do once or twice a year. Now, they need to be books that are related. Nick Murray's book, Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth, I give that to every prospect. From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks is a great book for people that are transitioning into retirement or major life events. And Mark Higgins' book on investing, which is a gret book, it's a financial history of the United States. It's great for kind of DIYers in a way to overwhelm them with how much they really need to know to do investing effectively. So those are a couple of examples. Of course, if you're doing any kind of event, education event, appreciation event, whatever your events you're doing, this is a great time to reach out to those prospects. But either way, we need to reach out to them every 90 days. This should be on your prospect tracker that we talked about a few weeks ago. Every 90 days, we're contacting them, and we need to be contacting a minimum of 10 a week. So if you don't have 10 you can contact this week, we need to brainstorm separately on that. That's where we go back to the Dream 100 or the COI strategy, whatever the case may be. But we need to do 10 a week, so including this week. And at a minimum, we can talk to them every 90 days. Next action item. Being prepared is like cheating. This is a quote from one of my top clients. She said, Matthew, I don't know how you remember all this stuff, but you're one of the most thoughtful professionals I've ever met. Now, this was a high compliment coming from a client who's worked with a lot of professionals over the years, and it was a very sincere compliment. Now, let's explain the cheating part of this. It's not that I have this phenomenal memory. I suppose I have about an average memory based on the people I've met. The reason I'm able to give this experience, not just this impression, this experience, is that I make sure that I'm insanely prepared for meetings with clients, phone calls with clients, meetings with clients. It's also, by the way, while I never take incoming client calls, I always have to have an appointment so that I can be prepared. Especially if you're a younger advisor, again, on the lower side of confidence or credibility, whether that's real or perceived, the more prepared you are, the better that meeting's going to be, because we're all impressed. Like, everyone's most important thing in their mind is themselves. And so the more I know about them, right, the more they see, wow, Matthew really cares about me. He knows these things about me that no one else ever notices. So what does that mean? And this needs to be a checklist. Preparation does not happen by accident. Like everything, this is a simple thing. It's not easy though. So the week before I'm having scheduled client meetings or prospect meetings, I'm doing all of the research I possibly can. Depending on your level of systems and experience, this is anywhere between 30 minutes and 60 minutes of time. I'm going to review all of my case prep for the meeting. I'm going to review my prior meeting notes or dictations or Jump AI summaries. I'm going to look at their tax return. I'm going to look at the notes in the CRM. I'm going to make sure I'm looking at their age, upcoming milestone. I'm looking at their goals, really anything I can to really know this client. And I'm taking small notes on my case prep sheet, right? So I'm noting, hey, they have a child in college, or they want to retire to the Bahamas, or they were going on a trip to Italy, whatever that is, key talking points that I can bring up. I'm also, based on the experience with this client or prospective client, I'm trying to think of any concerns they might have. Maybe they're concerned about the economy. Maybe they're concerned about fees. Maybe they're concerned about performance. Whatever that might be, I want to make sure that I'm prepared to answer those questions. Now, the day before a meeting, I'm going to do another quick review. This is probably only about 5 minutes. I'm just going to glance through. I'm going to touch bases on the key points, mostly my homework sheet, my case prep. The reason for that is I want to kind of restart my brain again. I did a deep dive last week. I want to restart my brain again, make sure that my cognitive system is going on this client. And then 15 minutes before the meeting, I'm going to review the details again, right? So that last 15 minutes for my meeting, phone call or in person, I've stopped everything else I'm doing, and I'm just focused on that client. It's like I'm getting ready to do a trivia game for that client or that prospect. I want to know everything about them. By the way, for prospects, this could include Googling them or checking out their LinkedIn, all of those things. But for those 15 minutes, I really want to be dialed in. And then 5 minutes before, a lot of time, I am 100% dialed in. I'm really just visualizing success. I'm visualizing the client walking in. I'm visualizing how we're going to introduce them, how we're going to sit in the conference room, what we're going to talk about, how excited they're going to be, the key points that I'm going to bring up, how I'm going to deliver massive value. This also works for team meetings. You don't necessarily need the whole process, but I definitely want to, the 15 minutes before any team meeting, review my notes for that meeting so that I come in there really prepared, right? Because I want to impress my team as much as I want to impress my clients. And this isn't just about impressing, like I want to show off. I really want to come prepared. Like if I impress people, they're going to want to impress me, and we're all going to deliver more. And of course, we talked about this last week. 5 minutes ahead of time is on time. I never, ever going to come late to any meeting with a client, with a team member, with anyone, because it just destroys my credibility. Okay, focus number 3 is in Crayon versus Marshmallow. So I had worked with a client for many years, still a client. He worked with a team of engineers, and the engineers would come in and they would start going into these elaborate details about these engineering processes. And he would say, hang on a second. He would pull out of his drawer a box of crayons and a stack of paper. And he said, could you just draw this one out for me? Because what he discovered, and there's actually been a lot of studies on this, that the further we get into the details and the weeds, the further people get detached from reality and mistakes start happening. So let's contrast 2 examples here on our screen. On the right, we sort of have what would be the standard financial planning process in our industry, where we have these Monte Carlo illustrations and we have this 86% probability of success, whatever the hell that means. And we have these scenarios where the client is either going to be broke by 2055 or they'll be a multi-gazillionaire by 2073. Not super useful information. And it's like saying marshmallows to clients. What do I mean by that? When I say things like percentage or Monte Carlo or standard deviation or maybe even Roth conversion, that's jargon that we all understand. It is not jargon that the client understands. And so what I like to imagine is that instead of saying, hey, 86% probability of success, I say, hey, you have 86 marshmallows of success, because it means the same to the client. Like it's not disrespect to a client. We're just using terminology that doesn't make sense to them or really anyone. Let's contrast this. Let's contrast this 86% probability of success with this script over here. Mr. and Mrs. Client, running out of money is not an option. However, leaving a mattress stuffed full of money isn't winning the game either. Like right away, we've created visualizations that the client can relate to. We can then draw out buckets or guardrails, whatever your preference is. And so your action item on this one, I want you to take time this week to draw out at least 5 different concepts. This could be literally draw it on a piece of paper, not on your computer, not even on your iPad, like a piece of paper and a pen or a crayon, I guess, if you find one. I want you to draw out 5 of these. You can draw out your retirement income strategy, your investment models. You can do buckets. You can do guardrails. You can draw out your prospect process, estate documents. Draw these out and then practice explaining them out loud in front of a camera. Now, a hint for this is to find some other advisor who's really good at drawing these out and say, how do you draw these out? And watch them and then duplicate that. But if you can't draw a concept out with a white piece of paper and a pen, you don't actually understand that concept. So practice at least 5 of these this week, and record yourself explaining them in front of your camera. Again, your iPhone is fine. Don't get fancy with this. Focus area number 4, break the funk. It is very difficult to be a financial advisor. I spent many years of my career, especially during the financial crises, starting each day trying to figure out how to quit this industry. And I would try to figure out, what am I going to do with all this debt that I have? And what am I going to do for a job besides this? At the time, I didn't have a college degree. And I spent like the first hour trying to figure out how to quit, which is not a good way to set yourself up for success. And then, surprise of all surprises, my days would go poorly. And I mention that because we all have bad days. Sometimes we have bad weeks. Sometimes we have bad months. It could be because we failed an exam. It could be because a prospect said no, or whatever it is. We need a way to break out of that. So a couple of ways to break out of this. I like to have a quick reset tool so that whenever I catch myself kind of in a funky mood, and again, it could be from anything. It could be a team member said something or a client or whatever. One of mine is I used to keep a rubber band, just like a rubber band from an office around my wrist. And if I felt myself in a funk or beating myself up, I would pull that thing back and snap it on my wrist. Do it on the top of your wrist, not the bottom. I would snap that because that physical impulse, that signal would cause my brain to get out of that loop. The problem is we get in this loop that doesn't make any sense. We keep going. Standing up and working with a standing desk is great, or having something on my calendar that's I like to call it a brainless rep. Like whenever I'm in a funk, I know I can do X. I know I can call a client I haven't seen in a long time and invite them to something. I know that I can practice a script or do one of my drawings, like whatever the case may be, I have something to go to that when I catch myself ruminating, especially negative rumination, I can break that. I also like to have a bigger reset. And this is something you're going to have, you want to put this on a Post-it note and stick it to your monitor. That's your kind of your bigger reset. So if you find yourself playing Office, which is like looking at social media or just kind of screwing around, doing dumb work, not getting your reps done, have that bigger reset, like walking around the block. That's a great one to just like, all right, I'm not really doing anything productive. I'm just going to take a quick walk around the block. I'm going to clear my head. And when I come back, I'm going to do another brainless rep, or I'm going to get back into something. The last thing on this, set your tomorrow you up for success. So if it's whatever day today is, and I'm kind of in a funk, it's really hard for me to think of a way to get out of that funk. When we're in a funk, I think about going on social media. I don't think about, I should call 5 prospects, but I can set future me up for success. And so each day, we've talked about this in prior videos, each day and each week, I want to outline what I'm going to do the next day and the next week so that I don't have to rely on me being in a good mood or bad mood to get that done. So get that rubber band around your wrist and have that Post-it note on what you do for a big reset. Let's summarize all our action items for this week, and then we'll look at our bonus items. So contact a minimum of 10 prospects or centers of influence every week and never let them go past 90 days without hearing from you for a meaningful contact. Generic emails don't count. Generic newsletters don't count. It has to be a personalized, meaningful contact. Prep the week before, the day before, and 15 minutes before all of your meetings so that you walk in there knowing more about that person than almost literally anyone but them. Like you're coming in, you've got it all down. Take time to draw out 10 items in Crayon. I think I said before 5. Let's up this to 10. 10 concepts, draw them out in Crayon. Pen is fine. You don't have to use an actual crayon. Pen is fine. Cannot be on your computer. And have your reset strategy. Now, here's your bonus for those who really want to grow faster. This is the book I've read more times than any other book in my library. I read it probably once or twice every single year. And that is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Now, Steven talks specifically about creating art, like movies or books, a lot of writing books. Same thing applies to our work. It's about getting the repetitions in. We have to keep calling those prospects or centers of influence or Dream 100, but we don't want to. And there will be any number of excuses not to. And Steven creates some great frameworks for breaking through what he calls resistance, what I like to call head trash, getting you to where it is you want to be. So there are your action steps for this week. Do them double, do them triple. They will get you to that next $100,000 of income on your journey to $1 million+. And until next time, happy planning.